It's waxing lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mainz and Dutch. I'm your host, Mainz, my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford, to Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I'm happily sitting here knowing that there's as much chance of me getting a fat new contract from the Rams as there is Aaron Donald.
Yeah, breaking news when we're recording this podcast, 10 to 9 on the 17th of July, British summertime. Brandon Cook's just got a 5-year deal, or as Neil described it, the F you, Aaron Donald, go and get your own money.
Pay everyone but AD. It's a bold strategy.
It's controversial, considering some would suggest, and some being the people in this podcast, that AD is their best player.
If he isn't their best player, he's certainly in the top one.
It's a controversial statement. It's a controversial approach, but Sean McVay's an offensive guy and is basically just told Wade Phillips to sort it out himself.
Yeah.
For people who've downloaded this, you actually know what we're going to talk about now. It's NFC North time on Waxing Lyrical. Last week did the AFC North. Please listen. It was probably one of our most average, I think, Neil. That's fair.
Certainly, you know, if we were shooting for a middle, we pretty much hit it.
And to be fair, there's a reason for that, and that's because, with the exception possibly of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the AFC North is Pooh George, as it's known in the trade. So this week, NFC North, I think we've got some exciting teams, and the Lions. But we'll get on to that momentarily. Same format as last week. We're going to talk about changes, ins and outs. One big question for each team. A fantasy breakout. A fantasy broke. And then we're going to talk win total and whether we see that this team as champs or chumps. Make sense, Neil?
Plan.
I hope so, because you got the rundown, so you should actually know what we're going to do. So let's start with the Chicago Bears. Ins, Allen Robinson, Super Bowl champion Trey Burton, Tyler Gabriel, Roquan Smith, linebacker Georgia. He picked number 8, I believe. Great pick. Out, Pernell McPhee, Mike Glennon did really good job in Chicago, as I'm sure you can tell, and Marcus Wheaton.
And John Fox.
And John Fox, big out, figuratively and literally. Big question, Neil, for the Chicago Bears is, can the Bears be this year's Rams?
In terms of taking on the role, i.e. a moribund offence that becomes a lot more exciting and a lot more productive, it wouldn't take an awful lot. In terms of matching the actual output, I don't think they're going to be that good. I mean, their offensive numbers last year are downright offensive, if you'll pardon the pun. Plays per game, they were second bottom. Red zone plays per game, third from bottom. Yards per drive, bottom. Points per drive, third bottom. And they trailed on nearly 60% of all their offensive plays. That was good for 9th most. They attempted the fewest passes per game. Their yards per attempt was less than 6. They had the 6th highest run stuff percentage. These statistics, by the way, are courtesy of Graham Barfield, so hats off to him. Offensively, they were terrible. They didn't allow Mitchell Trubisky to do anything. He was surrounded with zero talent. I'll rephrase that. Obviously, these people are talented. Zero game-breaking talent. So they've obviously the new offensive-minded head coach, Matt Nagy, Nagawi, whatever you want to call him. They've gone out, they've acquired Allen Robinson, who does have a 1,400-yard, 14-touchdown season on his resume with Blake Bortles. They got trick play Trey, the best quarterback in Chicago. Taylor Gabriel is a speed threat. They do also have, from last year, Adam Shaheen, who they took from Tiny Ashland College. It is contractually obliged to call them Tiny Ashland. I don't know why, but that's just it. There are an awful lot of pieces. They've still got Jordan Howard, of course. You've got to hand it to him, because he certainly won't catch it. And Tariq Cohen. They do have a lot of parts on offense that make this potentially exciting. It's just a question of... It's Carson Wentz. This offense goes as Mitch Trubisky goes. So if he has improved, then these pieces all look very good. If he does not improve, then it's then it's going to be a bad season.
I just look at it Dutton, in terms of, we should play a thought experiment. You've been watching the NFL since when? 1999?
19th of November 2000.
2000. I've been watching it since around 1986. Let's play a game. In those years, how many times have the Chicago Bears had a good offense?
Well, I know their quarterback hasn't been to the Pro Bowl since Jim McMahon in 1985. You can take the Pro Bowl for what it is, but they've not... Historically, we go through back to the dawns of time, this team is not one that its fan base associates with great offense. They've always been about the defense. Their offenses at times have produced quality players. Matt Forte, obviously very, very productive. Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey. They did let Greg Olsen go for a ham sandwich. Well played there. But defensively, they're very strong. And it's notable that this team, this franchise, does have previous of firing a head coach, but retaining the defensive coordinator. Can you tell me the last time it happened? And what then happened?
The head coach became Mike Ditka. The defensive coordinator was Mr. Buddy Ryan.
And they hated each other. Now, I'm sure Vic Fangio and Matt Nagawa don't hate each other, but their defense was very good last season. And Vic Fangio's defenses are always very good. It's just a question of, no, you have to meet us halfway here.
I think
now, I say on paper... Go on.
I think they're going to attempt to meet them halfway done. I think that's fair, right? They're going to look to do what you've asked them to, which is, give us some slack, try and score more than 20 points, and actually, keep the ball for more than 30 seconds. That will be helpful for us, if that's okay with you. That's why you get a new head coach. You've got a quarterback in place who you drafted really high. Whether we agree that that's a good idea or not, you're about to find out seriously this year. You sign a number one wide receiver. You sign a backup quarterback / tight end in Trey Burton. You have skilled players at the running back position, so you give yourself a chance to be dynamic. And I think that's all you can ask for. Are they the Rams? Well, no. But then, I don't know if we all thought the Rams were going to be the Rams, because we all thought Jared Goff stunk. We weren't convinced by any of the wide receivers, really. And Todd Gurley has had an off couple of years, so is there a chance that the team can do that? Yes. Do I expect it? Not as much, but I expect them to be infinitely better than last year.
I wouldn't expect them to be challenging for a top 5 draft pick. Are they going to be in the playoffs and potentially push the Super Bowl? Probably not. But we've seen it happen. As you say, the Rams turned it round. The Eagles turned it round. It's just a question of, again, don't expect too much from someone who has literally only spent 6 weeks of his life calling an offense in the NFL.
Absolutely. If we drift to fantasy, Neil, we usually struggle on the Chicago Bears for a fantasy breakout. We seem to have a lot of fantasy breaks, but give me who the fantasy breakout on the Chicago Bears is.
We've talked about Allen Robinson and various other members, Taylor Gabriel, who has shown he can flash in fantasy. There's a good chance, in my opinion, especially if he can flash and shine during preseason, that their second round draft pick, Anthony Miller, could well beat out Taylor Gabriel in 2 wide receiver sets. And again, it's a question of if this team is going to be a lot more pass oriented as opposed to how pitifully reliant they were on the run last season. Then we know Allen Robinson's going to attract attention. We know Trey Burton's going to attract attention. Adam Shaheen. It's a question of then the other guy can possibly feed off that. Anthony Miller is a very well thought of prospect. He's not going to be a superstar, I don't think, because again, there's an awful lot of moving parts in this offense, but he's going undrafted at the moment according to Fantasy Football Calculator. So very late in your drafts, week 1 in waivers, he might be someone to pick up and stash just see how it goes. I say I'm not telling you to go out and make him a priority. It's just a name to consider.
Whose fantasy broke on the Chicago Bears, Neil?
Again, I don't want to say broke, but I'm not particularly comfortable with how high Trey Burton is being drafted. He's going in the end of the 7th round, and he's the 9th tight end going off the board. He does not have a large workload on his resume. Yes, I know he flashed at times for the Eagles, especially when Zach Ertz wasn't there. But you're asking him. Everyone's coming in saying he's going to be Matt Nagy's Travis Kelce. Yeah, he's 2 inches shorter and 30 pounds lighter. Believe me, that counts. So while he may be the lead tight end between the 20s, he'll probably lead all the Bears tight ends in snaps and targets and receptions. Once they get inside the red zone, they're not going to look for him, I don't think. They're going to look for Allen Robinson. They're going to look for Adam Shaheen. They're going to try and run the ball. So while I'm not saying that Burton is a bust, I would rather take George Kittle and Jack Doyle ahead of him. And at the moment, they're going after him.
I love the idea that you're taking 2 1920s gangsters over Trey Burton, but it makes sense if you actually know that those are actually professional players, not names you've made up while watching Carlito's Way. Drifting onto the win total, Neil. Win total, according to Vegas, for the Chicago Bears is 6.5. They have home games against the Seahawks, the Bucks, the Pats, the Jets, and the Rams. They have road games against the Cards, the Dolphins, the Bills, the Giants, and the 49ers. They randomly play the AFC East in back-to-back weeks, going Dolphins, Pats, Bills, Jets in a random thing. I don't really know why.
Never known that before.
No, it's a quirk of the schedule, obviously. They are 6.5, Neil. Do you see them as champs or chumps?
Again, it's a question of, I'm not saying that they're going to contend. I'm going to say that they're going to progress. I think that's a generous and fairly accurate spot. It's almost like the people in Vegas know what they're talking about. I'd be stunned if they pushed double-digit wins. Could they go? I mean, 5-11 would probably 5-11, but their offense is better, would register as progress. I just think this is such a strong division, and that is such a slightly iffy schedule that I think I'm going to push. I think they've got to, I'm going to attempt it. I know they can't go unless there's some ties, but I'd say maybe half a game either way. I think it's a fair call.
Yeah, I think as you quite rightly point out, there's a reason that Vegas has really big hotels, and they make lots of money. And when they continue to legalize gambling across the United States, there'll be a lot of other rich people in the United States related to that. I think 6.5 is a good number. I'm quite bullish on the Bears. Like not 9-7 bullish, but if I went away, I'd go 7-9, 8-8. It is a tough schedule. But I look at the road schedule: Cards, Dolphins, Bills, Giants. Nothing to fear in that road schedule. They play the Rams in December at Soldier Field. That's a good thing. Do you know the Bucks is like mid-October, I think. Okay, I think Winston will be back, but chance that the Bucks have imploded and it'll be cold. We'll come on to the Lions, but I think they're better than the Lions. And then, you've got what we'll call in the UK derby against Green Bay, and we'll see how it goes against Minnesota. I guess so. I'm gonna say the champs compared to where they were last year. I'm gonna say like 7-9, 8-8. Quietly bullish on the Bears. Next team, Dutton. Everyone's favourite Thanksgiving game, Detroit Lions. The change. Struggle with this, Neil. Tell you what, when you go deep in the weeds on the Lions, you find out that you don't know that much about them. They drafted Frank Ragnow, who I think is a senator from West Wing. He's a guard from Arkansas, actually. And they also drafted Kerryon Johnson, who's running back from LSU. They also signed LeGarrette Blount, which I didn't actually know that. Out, everyone's favourite tight end drop machine, Eric Ebron.
And the walking zombie, Jim Caldwell.
And the walking zombie, Jim Caldwell. And brought in, obviously, everybody's favourite backward hat-wearing caveman, Matt Patricia. We'll let you guess why I say caveman. Is there a chance, Dutton, in the big question, is there a chance that the Lions get lost in the NFC North arms race?
It could happen, because obviously everyone's expecting the Packers will come again if Rodgers is fit. People are pretty much kissing the Vikings into the championship game again, which we'll get to them, but I'm pretty certain you have some thoughts on that. I spoke to Dave Burkett a few weeks ago for this here podcast, and I said to him, what is a successful season for the Lions? And he said they went 9-7 last year and fired the coach. That tells you what they think a successful season is. They want to get back to the playoffs. The last playoff game and only playoff game to be played at Ford Field was the Super Bowl, and the Lions weren't in it. Obviously, we know about the Lions over the last few years. They can't run the ball. They haven't been able to run the ball, so they've passed it some more. If we have a look here, they passed on 63% of their plays last year. It's the second highest in the NFL. And their rushing yards per game was 76.3. A little bit pitiful, that. They had 38.5 passes per game, was the 9th most in the NFL. And they had 61.3 plays per game, which was 28, because they couldn't really sustain drives. They were reliant on big plays to Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, Eric Ebron to an extent. Their defense let them down as well. They couldn't get off the quarterback. They were reliant too much on Ziggy Ansah. Now that they've got some people coming back, they've got Kerry Ryder. I hope that's his name. It's a funny looking surname. Their defense, their sack percentage, they forced a sack on 6.1% of the opponent's dropbacks. That was the 22nd in the league. They need to get after the quarterback. They need to run the ball, and they need to not expect Matt Stafford to dig them out of every possible hole.
I look at it, and if you haven't listened to Neil's interview with the guy for the Detroit Lions, it's excellent, and you really should. I only got to edit it from India. I wasn't involved. And it's a very good point. They went 9-7 last year and fired the coach. So they must see something that, I'll be brutally honest, I don't see. Like, I don't see them as an 11-5 team. Like, as you said, they literally can't run the ball. And I don't think they've run the ball ever. Like, since Barry Sanders. Like, it's been a while. Matt Stafford. Yeah. I've had a relationship with Matt Stafford in the love-hate variety. He's been much better under the offensive coordinator. So I think, have they got a chance to be good? Yeah, they can't rush the quarterback, as you said, and they decided that they don't want to pay Ziggy Ansah to do that job either. I don't know. I just look and think, are they as good as Green Bay? No. Are they as good as Minnesota? No, I don't think they are. And I'm not 100% sure they're better than the Chicago Bears. Now, this could be one of them where you're just wrong, Neil. And I'm looking at them and thinking one thing, and it's not. They were 9-7 last year. They haven't really lost anyone of note. They've gained on a coach, and then they've got a guard to help with the running game and a running back. So helpful. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it. On the Detroit Lions, fantasy wise, who's their fantasy breakout?
Who am I going to say?
You tell me, Neil.
Number 19 in your programme, number 1 in my heart, Kenny Golladay.
I mean, let's be honest, Neil. This crush is reaching stalker level proportions. But talk me through why Kenny Golladay is the man for your heart.
As good a season as Marvin Jones had last season, and he did, don't get me wrong, especially on a per-play basis, he was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in terms of his efficiency. His really big games came when Kenny Golladay was not playing. Golladay is closer to the archetype number one wide receiver than Jones is. Jones has gone from when he was on the Bengals to being a possession receiver to being with the Lions to be the deep threat. Golladay is built like a traditional X. He's the split end. He's big. He's strong. He's powerful. They've got red zone targets to spare now that Eric Ebron has gone. And I say, go back to when I was talking to Dave Burkett. He thinks Golladay is going to cannibalise an awful lot of Eric Ebron's work. It's contract years for Tate and Jones, so I think they're going to want to see what they've got in Kenny Golladay. He's available at the end of the 11th round. So as a 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th wide receiver, if you can take him, the upside alone makes him worth the gamble, because we know the Lions, obviously they want to try and get better at running the ball, but we know they are inclined towards the pass. So they're going to be volume, there's going to be opportunity. So that is why I think Kenny G is going to break out this year. This year is the moment for Kenny G.
We can't love everyone as much as you love Kenny Golladay, Dutton. So who's the fantasy broke on the Detroit Lions?
Well, I'm tempted to say Amir Abdullah, but then I realised no one actually gives a shit about Amir Abdullah, because it's pretty much right on the wall that he's not going to be the lead back. He's not going to be the pass catching back. So I would say, obviously, double A, but LeGarrette Blount as well. I think they've brought him in relatively cheaply. He knows Matt Patricia from their time together with the Patriots. But I think they're going to want to try and run and get Kerry and Johnson going. I mean, you can argue any running back for the Lions other than Theo Riddick in PPR leagues doesn't have much fancy value, because they'll just go away from him. Because it's not a case of, but it's a new head coach, you don't know. Yeah, but it's not a new offensive coordinator. We've seen what Jim Bob Cooter can do. This is not, I mean, as I say, the Lions had less than 23 rushing attempts per game last season. It was the second lowest. Yards per attempt, 3.36. Percentage of runs stuffed, 27%, second highest. Is Ragnow going to come in and make that better? You look at the first round draft picks they've invested on their offensive line. I think they're all first rounders, but they're there to protect Matt Stafford, and ultimately that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, very, very true, Dutton. Win total for the Detroit Lions is 7.5. They have home games against the Jets, the Pats, the Seahawks, the Panthers and the Rams, and they have road games against the 49ers, Cowboys, Dolphins, Cards, and a nice trip to Buffalo in December. Enjoy that, Detroit Lions indoor team. Win total is 7.5. Dutton, champs or chumps?
See, I'm quite bullish on them just because I think I'm a lot higher on Matt Stafford than you are, and certainly friend Tony is. I hope the defense can improve. This is one of those franchises that it seems to have been successful for the last 5 years, and by that it just means they haven't had to pick first overall. But I think they deserve a bit more. I'm a lot more benevolent this season now that the Eagles have won the Super Bowl. I'd like to see other people have a little bit of success. Not too much, because ultimately if it gets down to crunch time, bugger them. It's the Eagles or no one. But the Browns, the Lions, I'd like to see these teams do well. And so I'm going to stick my neck out and I'm going to say I'm going to take the over. I think this could be a division where, much like the NFC South, there'll be 3 teams at least challenging for the playoffs in this division at the end of the season.
Okay, I'm gonna take the under. I see them as 6-10. I am really looking forward to the Lions-Rams game though, because there is a high possibility it could be 43-38. But I just don't see it, and it's not that I don't. I know Matt Stafford is talented. He must be his quarterback in the NFL. But I just don't see the team gelling, and I don't see it working, and there's always something wrong. And for the fact Jim Caldwell was a zombie, they won a load of tight games. And I don't know if that had anything to do with him or because of him or not, but it happened. Does it happen this year? I'm not sure. And I don't, 49ers, Cowboys, Bills in December, travelling to Green Bay, travelling to Minnesota, travelling to Chicago. Outdoor game. It's not easy for Detroit. I'm going to have them about 6-10, so chumps for me.
Just a quick one, just as we go back to, going back to the Rams. They now have $2.2 million in cap space this season.
Yeah.
In 2019, they've got $56 million. free. But Donald will be a free agent. Sue will be a free agent. LaMarcus Joyner will be a free agent. In 2020, they're 137 million in space, but they've only got 37 players under contract, and their free agents will be Goff, Gurley, Brockers.
I think it's called all in, Dutton. I think if you're wondering what the technical term is, that's all in.
Well, we know how well dream teams work in the NFL.
I know, but to be fair, Dutton, a team won the Super Bowl last year who spent a lot of money on players on one-year deals and tried to get it over the line. Lost his quarterback and still won the Super Bowl, so it can happen.
Yeah, but Howie's a wizard.
Howie is a wizard, and we're about to find out if the Rams are the same. Great hair. Is he a great GM? About to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on, Dutton. Mainzy's favourite punching bag at times, the Green Bay Packers. The change. They drafted Ja'Marr Alexander, cornerback from Louisville, and they also drafted another cornerback in the second round. They have drafted. They also picked up Jimmy Graham, Muhammad Wilkerson, and the biggest in, a healthy Aaron Rodgers. The biggest out, Teflon Don Capers. Then also lost Sam Shields, Morgan Burnett, and Adam Rodgers' wanky Jordy Nelson. The big question, Neil, on the Green Bay Packers: what's a bigger plus, a healthy Aaron Rodgers or a competent defensive coordinator?
Well, I would say a competent defensive coordinator, because we pretty much assume that if Rodgers is healthy, he's going to be Aaron Rodgers, because let's be honest, he is. It's what he does. They were absolutely putrid on offense without him, so yet again proves the point excuse me, that Aaron Rodgers is the real MVP of the NFL. They trailed on 64.8% of their plays last year. Now, you know, Aaron Donald didn't play all the time, but they still had talented players. You know, they still played on offense. It wasn't just, okay, we'll go away here, we'll leave it to the defense. The defense itself wasn't very good, although they did have the 9th highest forced sack percentage. But they had the 5th highest sack percentage allowed. They couldn't protect Brett Hundley. Brett Hundley was terrible anyway. The players had no chemistry with him. The offense was, they had the 21st plays per game, 22nd red zone plays per game, 16th yards per drive, 15 points per drive. And, the passing yards per game was under 200. That is unprecedented in an Aaron Rodgers era Packers. Mike Pettine, we have seen, can run good defenses. Obviously, he's from the Baltimore Ravens, Rex Ryan school of defense, so that means it's still going to be 3-4, but it's going to be a lot more attacking. He's going to put his players presumably in positions to do well. He's got Mo Wilkerson in. Obviously, he knows him from the Jets. They did a very sensible thing in the draft. Double down on cornerback, because they needed them. Because they've been short of a quality cornerback ever since Sam Shields first started getting injured. They've muddled by at tight end since Jermichael Finley's time. Some of the tight ends they've rolled out and somehow got production from. Oh, I know how they got production from. Their quarterback is Aaron Rodgers. Jimmy Graham wasn't very good last year. Take away his touchdowns, stupid thing to say. Take away his touchdowns, and he was Seattle's short yardage goal line back. He couldn't get up the seams. He wasn't separating. Will he get chances to score touchdowns? Of course he will. And that should replace Jordy Nelson in the red zone. But I think the aura of the Packers, in the sense that just plug Aaron Rodgers back in and this is the team to beat, I don't think that's the case.
I just look at it, Dutton, and think, first of all, there's a couple of things. If you're unsure how important quarterback is in the NFL, go back and look at the Green Bay Packers season last year. It's a night and day comparison to like how competitive they were and then how not competitive they were almost with Brett Hundley. But one of the reasons they weren't competitive under Brett Hundley is couldn't stop anyone. And let's be brutally honest, they haven't been able to stop anyone for about 5 years. And this is where I get a load of grief, because I say, like, this is a Mike McCarthy issue, but this is a management issue. You have the best quarterback in terms of talent in the NFL, okay? and you're wasting him. And that's not just by picking bad players. That's by having bad coordinators, doing a bad job running offenses, running defenses. You have attempted to resolve that by sorting out defensive coordinator. That's a good thing. Well done, Green Bay. It's 3 years too late, and let's hope it's not an issue. Everybody up and down raves about Aaron Rodgers, and rightfully so. He's been to one Super Bowl. I think he's got a losing playoff record.
Probably has.
So he's either not that good, or someone's not doing their job properly to make him a winner.
Their defensive rankings last year: defensive plays per drive, 6.2, 27th. Defensive points per drive, 2.22, 32nd. For those of you counting at home, there are 32 teams in the NFL. Defensive yards per drive, 33.82, 28th. They allowed 7.68 yards per passing attempt, but were quite stout against the run, only allowing 3.94. But you didn't have to run on them. You just picked apart their secondary. Aaron Rodgers can paper over so many cracks, but ultimately it's got to come down to this. Why do you keep asking him to do so?
I think that's it for me, Neil. Just be better, and it will really help him out. Do you know what I mean? I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, since he won the Super Bowl back in 2010, he's won 5 playoff games. So he's actually 10-7-0, but he went 4-0 in that playoff. It's not really acceptable. It's
not really, because of how much abuse Peyton Manning got.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Neil. You know, the same thing is happening to Aaron Rodgers that happened to Peyton Manning, and there's less noise about it. I don't know why, and I don't particularly care, because I don't really support. I don't have a side. I'm just stating that that's what's going on.
So you watched it more than I do. It should be pointed out, of course, that Rodgers has the same number of Super Bowls as Brett Favre. Is this what the Packers did with Brett Favre?
I think it's very similar. I do think it's very similar. You get focused on making someone happy, and the rest of it just kind of disappears, and it just doesn't work. I think, Brett Favre won 3 straight MVPs, and he won 1 Super Bowl. Something's not quite right there. I think Rodgers has got 2 MVPs, has he?
Yes.
And one Super Bowl. They need to be better. If they're better on defense, they've got a chance to go to the Super Bowl. Now, I don't think every time you go to the Super Bowl you should win. But you should be in a position to win a Super Bowl if you've got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. If you're not, then the front office and the head coach should be fired. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're getting there with, Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. No offense to Carson Wentz, who could be an amazing player, but is in year 2. And Nick Foles was on the scrap heap and brought back. Then that's good talent evaluation. That's good coaching. If you can't do that with Aaron Rodgers, that means there's 2 things wrong: talent evaluation and coaching. I don't want anybody to dress it up anymore, really. We could go on it forever, but we're not going to, Dutton, because we're going to talk fantasy on the Green Bay Packers. Give me the fantasy breakout.
If there's one thing that the Packers have seemed to do well, they're like the Pittsburgh Steelers, they can always seem to find wide receivers in the draft. Now, obviously, Davante Adams is now the number 1 wide receiver. I think, as well, especially in the red zone over the last 2 years, he's had 45 targets and 22 touchdowns in the red zone. Everyone's already kissing in as their second wide receiver, Randall Cobb. But I actually think it could be Geronimo Allison. That's a great name. If you listen to any
it's a spectacular name. I'm all in on anyone called Allison at the moment.
Yeah,
Big
of course
time.
you are. Any of Matt Kelly's podcasts, you'll be incredibly impressed how long he can stretch the Geronimo out for. He showed flashes last season with Aaron Rodgers. He was a lot better with Rodgers than with Huntley, who wasn't. I just think he's just got the slight leg up on Jamon Moore, Equinema St. Brown, to be the other wide receiver when the Packers go to 3 receivers. He's available at the end of the 13th round. Again, it's a flyer, but it's a name to consider, and it's someone that has already been spoken of in quite glowing terms by various people this offseason.
And let's be brutally honest.
Yeah, it's the Packers' offense as a player Packers' offense is something that generally, from a fantasy point of view, you'd like to get a piece of.
If you're a lover of Twitter and you're a lover of GIFs, I think we should all be praying that Geronimo Allison is a good player, because that could be next level GIF meme. Who's fancy broke, Neil?
Well, I mentioned him. It's Randall Cobb. And Randall Cobb had 1,000 yards in 2014. His receptions, his yards per reception, and his PPR points have gone down every single season since then. Now, he's been unlucky with injury, but he's still played the majority of the games. And people forget, and I sometimes forget as well, he's only 26, which is astounding when you consider how long he's actually been in the league. But he's still only a wee bairn. But I don't think he's got. I think he just doesn't seem to have it. And I say the Packers' offense can. Aaron Rodgers has shown he can prop up multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers. I'd be stunned if it was Randall Cobb, just because what we've seen of him most recently has not been very good. Especially, he's going in at the start of the 9th round. I think there's an awful lot better you can do there, rather than a player who's been on. Is now, he's going to be on a 4th straight. That's 15, 16, 17. Last 3 years have gone down, down, down. Well, why keep buying? It's I'd be stunned if it suddenly got better. So, not Cobb, not for me.
Win total, Neil, for the Green Bay Packers. And it should be noted on certain ones of these teams there are fan-friendly teams, shall we call them? So sometimes they get higher numbers than you would expect. The Green Bay Packers is 10.5. They have home games against the Bills, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and the Falcons. They have road games against Washington, the Rams, the Patriots, the Seahawks, and the Jets. In back-to-back weeks, they play Monday night against the 49ers at home, then play a road game at the Rams, and then a road game against the Patriots all around October and November time. They are 10.5. Neil, are they champs or chumps? It's a good number, 10.5, isn't it? It's a good number.
It is a good number. As I say, I'm going to place more faith in the fact that they've got Mike Pettine, so now they're going to be competent on defence, more so than the return of Rodgers, because I think the Rodgers return has already been baked in. So I'm going to take the over, but it's not a high over. 11-5. This team is not going 12-4, 13-3, 14-2. So the 11-5 seems nice. Could they go 9-7? Yes. 10-6 again? Yes. But let's be positive. Let's bask in the fact that Aaron Rodgers is a worldie, and I'll say a slight over.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with you, Neil. I think it's an over from me too. In terms of, they have Rodgers back and they have a competent defensive coordinator. If that competent defensive coordinator gets those numbers that you told us from the 27s and 32s to 15, 16, I'm not talking to be top 10, just mid-table, even 20, then they win 11 games. I think that that's what you've got, and there's a lot of people who are saying thanking Aaron Rodgers for the fact that they picked Devontae Adams, 5th in their wide receiver choice in the draft, and that they're getting 15 points a game from him. So I've got them as champs. I've got them winning this division. I've got them going reasonably far in the playoffs, I think. Which is ironic because I usually slag them off. Final team, Neil. The Minnesota Vikings. The change. Inns. A quarterback named Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Coupons.
Kirk Coupons, yeah. Mike Hughes, who's a cornerback from Central Florida, and Sheldon Richardson. Out 57 quarterbacks, including Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, and Teddy Bridgewater, and also monster fantasy lover sleeper at the moment, Mr. Jarrett McKinnon. The big question is, will the offense be better or worse than it was last season?
You tell me.
If I was drafting a tight end in a fantasy draft, I would be drafting Rudolph the Red Zone tight end. That is for absolutely sure. Do I like my chances in the red zone? Probably not as much as I should. I like Kirk or Kurt or Dave or whatever his name is. I think he's really, really, really okay. He's 12 to 15 quarterback in the NFL, which isn't a bad thing.
No.
Does that make him better than they had with Case Keenum last year? Maybe not. I guess the question is, can they do better with Kirk Cousins coaching up than they did with Case Keenum? So say Case Keenum is 25 and you coach him up to 15. If Kirk Cousins is 12, can you coach him up to 6? If you can do that, then you've got a Super Bowl contender on your hands. You know, and I like that, and I think Kirk would too. I love the wide receivers, and if Cook can be fit, it's a great running back, and they've got a more than competent, a talented, qualified quarterback in the NFL. But now he doesn't play for my team. Is he just Matthew Stafford in my eyes? That is the question that I don't know the answer to. Is he alright? Like, did I let him off for a load of stuff? I don't know. I'm not sure I did, actually. I think me and the rest of the Washington fan base were probably harsher on Kirk than we should have been. At the end of the day, we drafted him in the 4th round, and he was decent for us, and we won games, multiple games, and had the playoff, and got to the playoffs. Well, Washington, that doesn't happen very often. But I don't know. If we're talking benevolence, Neil, and like you're shining that benevolence on the Detroit Lions, come on, this franchise, give it a break. Like, for the love of God, their most famous play is irrelevant because the next week they laid a massive egg in Philadelphia.
No. Is there a risk that what Case Keenum hit last season as his utter ceiling, if his ceiling is Kirk Cousins' flatline, is that enough?
Yeah.
Because I think Kirk Cousins has probably got a higher ceiling than Case Keenum.
Agreed.
But I think what Keenum did last year was outstanding for Keenum, but it'd probably be par for the course for Cousins.
Yeah.
If that's the case, does it not then look that basically they need Dalvin Cook to be the huge difference maker because the passing game is going to be exactly what it was?
Yeah, I think they need to be better on the ground if they're going to be better. I do think that. Is that easy? Oh, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure, but...
Do you know the weird thing is about the Vikings? Is that they passed on 52.5% of their plays. That's the 28th. So they were very good running the ball. They averaged 3.9 yards a carry. But they had 31.3 rush attempts per game. That was the second most in the NFL. So they stayed with the running game, even though it didn't seem to produce masses of results. So you just wonder whether, Latavius Murray, bless him, what can you do? Can stand upright and run very fast through a hole. That's great. Jarrett McKinnon is, a bit of a jack-in-the-box, can do a little bit of everything well, but we'll see, how good a true running scheme can work to unlock his talent. It's a question of then, is Dalvin Cook, who they were using as a workhorse to start the season, can he come in and be a true workhorse? And we're assuming we're going to get the same low production from Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph. And all we have to do is say is Kirk Cousins just has to keep it on an even keel. If Kirk Cousins, if this is what he needs, this is, the unlocking of higher avenues of production for him, then the sky's the limit. But I think the worry is for me and for yourself, as you put it, is that he could just be a continuation of what Case Keenum did. In which case they've got a great defense, as we know, great defensive staff. Mike Zimmer is an absolute wizard. I will always go back to saying I wanted him when Andy Reid went. Who knows if the Eagles had got Zimmer instead of Chip Kelly? Who knows where we are now? If the Eagles got a Super Bowl, who knows? They've got some great pieces on defense. They've added some, Mike Adams and Sheldon Richardson. It's a question of, is Kirk Cousins and the return of Dalvin Cook that much of an improvement that it puts them in a position where if they go 7-0 up on the road in the playoffs, they don't poo the pants?
Yeah, absolutely, Neil. Before we get onto the fantasy thing, I'm just going to, for the Minnesota fans who listen, I regularly saw Kirk Cousins overthrow Deshaun Jackson on the deep ball, right? I want you to all think about that in your head, right? He overthrew Deshaun Jackson, sprinter extraordinaire with a deep ball. So that will be the play that will really, really annoy you. Okay, it's just getting it out there. You will see it 4 or 5 times where you've schemed it to perfection and he overthrows your fastest lad. You used to overthrow mine by 5 yards, probably going to overthrow yours by 10 because your one isn't quite as fast.
But we do forget, we haven't mentioned, of course, that they do have a very, very talented offensive coordinator replacing Pat Shurmur. So,
I'm high on the Vikings. I'm just, they didn't sign Aaron Rodgers. Like they signed Kirk Cousins. He was a serviceable and good quarterback. Like 12 to 15 in my eyes. Is that good enough? We're about to find out. Who's the fantasy breakout star on the Minnesota Vikings, though, Neil?
Well, the breakout is, we've talked about more already. That's Dalvin Cook. Now, he was drafted last season. Obviously, he missed a large chunk of the season, only played 1/4 of the games. But his usage in those games when he played, he was averaging, let's have a look, 18.5 rush attempts and 88.5 rushing yards. So he was on pace for 296 attempts, 1,400 rushing yards. He was on that. He had 4 targets per game, 2.75 receptions. PPR-wise, he was pacing for 270. That would have been a top 8 performance at running back. Say, Jerick McKinnon's gone. Latavius Murray will still be there. He might vulture some goal line touchdowns. We've seen that Dalvin Cook is going to get used in all facets of the game. Kirk Cousins is not afraid to check down if he has to. Dalvin Cook, at the moment, some people are questioning, second round, top of the second, is that too high for him? I don't think it is, because we saw last season this team is committed to running the ball, even when it isn't working. Dalvin Cook, if he can be productive, then I think second round is very good value. And if you're that desperate to get that workhorse running back, if you were taking him at the back end of the first, I don't think it would be a terrible thing to do.
Who's fantasy broke, Neil?
Any wide receiver, not called Thielen or Diggs. The wide receiver depth chart is interesting. Kendall Wright, Laquan Treadwell, Tyler Winky, I believe his name is. He was he was productive plodder for North Dakota. For the,
Winky who's a plodder?
A plodding Winky.
Okay.
And ultimately, we've seen that I don't think Kirk Cousins, if can't get to Diggs, can't go to Thielen, can't go to Rudolph, he's just going to throw it away, isn't he?
He's definitely, and I just, again, I hope that he gets chemistry with the wide receivers, because as someone who drafted the wide receiver in the first round, and then they managed not to get any real chemistry with that first round wide receiver, that's really annoying, like proper annoying. So let's hope that doesn't befall either Diggs or Thielen.
No.
Win total, Neil, is 10.5, same as the Green Bay Packers. Home games against the 49ers, the Bills, the Cards, the Saints and the Dolphins. Road games against the Rams, the Eagles, the Jets, the Pats and the Seahawks. 10.5, are they champs or chumps?
The champs, for me, they are the best team in the division because they've got the best defense in the division. I think they've got enough firepower and offense that they can hopefully try and score as many points as they can outside the red zone, so they don't have to rely on their kicker. Because we've seen Kirk, he loves to trust Kai or Dustin Hopkins or whatever other clown the Redskins were wheeling out. It's just a question of whether they are how prepared they'd be in January and February in the playoffs with Kirk Cousins, who's not got a particularly good record in the playoffs. But who knows? As I say, if it can all come together and they can be the same force on offense as they were last year, the defense was outstanding. Are they in contention for a first round bye? Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to go champs as well. I think they make the playoffs, but probably as a wildcard team, I expect the Packers to win the division. I guess this is literally talent evaluation over quarterback in terms of the logic why those two teams win. I mentioned the overthrowing fast wide receivers. I obviously forgot to mention how many 27-yard field goals the Minnesota Vikings will have this year. Enjoy them. Although I have a horrible, horrible feeling that I will still see those 27-yard field goals and Minnesota won't. And it wasn't a Kirk Cousins issue because it was an Andy Dalton issue beforehand, and that makes it a Jay Gruden issue. Because it obviously wasn't a Sean McVay issue because they scored 8 billion points last year. So I'm looking at you, Jay. At the moment, the only place I'm looking at is you. So when I hear some kind of nonsense of, Alex Smith can't get it in the end zone, well, neither could Andy Dalton, and neither could Kirk Cousins. Do you know what? Those all three have got in common. Jay Gruden. I'm looking at you. But this isn't an NFC East podcast. This is NFC North. I'm going to say 11-5. Probably losing the tiebreaker, or the Packers go 12-4. But both teams make the playoffs, and I'd quite like to see them both play each other in the playoffs as well, because I think it'd be quite interesting.
Yeah.
That's it for the NFC North, Neil. North checked off. Next week, if you thought we were overly excited by talking about the AFC North 2 weeks ago, boy, I bet you can't wait until we talk about the AFC East next week.
Christ.
For the love of God, can we skip it? But no, we won't. We will talk AFC East. I bet you can't guess who we're going to say are going to win the division.
Yeah, it's not going to be who Maurice Jones-Drew and James Jones thing.
No, it's not. If you haven't seen that, hunt it down. MJD thinks the Jets are going 11-5. Neil, before we go, have you got any light reading for our listeners?
Yes, I will have, continuing my work at 2QBs, I will have an article about Dak Prescott out probably sometime this week. I also will be doing deep sleepers for the Eagles and Tampa Bay Bucks. I'll be doing that for RotoViz. I'm still working on my NFC edition of the State of the Tight End Union for Player Profiler. And I may have some other little bits. Oh, and also I've started research on looking at whether Travis Kelce can be the first player this century to three-peat as tight end 1 in fantasy.
Nice, Neil. Nice. If you want to get in touch with us, I'm at Mainzy7. Neil is at Ndorton13. And combined, we are waxing_lyrical. We do the show weekly, but we're happy to interact whenever you're willing to interact with us. Anything else, Neil?
No, I say I've still drafting the Scott Fish Bowl, and with each passing round, I hate my team more and more.
That's standard fancy, ladies and gents. And on that note, these top guys are out.